The cargo holds have been sitting undisturbed for over 7 decades, 690 feet down off Cape Hatteras. When the ROV's lights hit the SS Bluefields in 2014, 72 years after it went down, the research team found a ship frozen in time. A Nicaraguan freighter with its hull torn open by a German torpedo. Masts collapsed across the deck. And 240 yards away, the thing that killed it, U-576, the U-boat that didn't survive the battle either. Both went down on July 15, 1942. Both stayed exactly where they fell. But here's what makes this discovery different. This wasn't just another lost merchant ship. It was a battlefield, preserved on the ocean floor, with evidence that tells a story the survivors couldn't. This is the SS Bluefields, the merchant ship that went down in minutes, the U-boat that followed it to the bottom, and the questions that remain 72 years later. The SS Bluefields was found in a part of the ocean where ships don't stay intact. NOAA researchers mapped the wreck site 30 miles off North Carolina's Outer Banks in 2014, using side-scan sonar that revealed an anomaly at 690 feet. Deep enough to be beyond recreational diving, shallow enough for detailed surveys. The coordinates placed it squarely in what mariners call the graveyard of the Atlantic, a stretch of seabed littered with centuries of wrecks, most of them broken apart by storms, salvage, or time. The ROV footage showed something different. A merchant freighter with its central deck house still recognizable, masts collapsed across the main deck like fallen trees, and 2 cargo hatches still present at bow and aft. The ship sat in cold, low-oxygen water, the kind of environment that slows decay but doesn't stop it. The steel hull showed the expected corrosion for 72 years underwater. Deck structures were identifiable. The damage pattern was clear. And 240 yards away lay U-576, the German submarine that had attacked convoy KS-520 that afternoon. Both vessels formed what NOAA scientists called a rare dual-wreck battlefield site. Predator and prey, locked in place on the ocean floor, exactly where they'd fought their last engagement. The U-boat's conning tower jutted from the sand, tilted at an angle that suggested it had gone down hard. Its deck gun was still visible, and somewhere inside that steel coffin were the remains of 45 German sailors who never made it home. Most WWII merchant wrecks this deep show significant degradation. Torpedo strikes typically cause catastrophic structural failure, collapsing internal spaces and scattering debris across the seabed. Ships break apart as they sink, or decay over decades into unrecognizable ruins. The Bluefields showed typical preservation for its depth and conditions. The hull remained intact up to the main deck level. The torpedo damage was evident. The masts and booms had fallen, but the overall structure had survived in a way that allowed researchers to study how the ship went down and what happened in those final moments. The proximity to U-576 made it significant. This wasn't just a wreck site, it was a snapshot of a moment in naval warfare, a record of an attack, a counterattack, and 2 crews that went down within minutes of each other. And neither wreck had been moved, disturbed, or salvaged in over 7 decades. When NOAA made the discovery public in October 2014, the reaction focused on historical significance. Here was a piece of WWII history, a rare dual wreck site that could teach researchers about convoy tactics, U-boat strategy, and the brutal reality of the Battle of the Atlantic. Maritime archaeologists praise the site's research value. Families of the U-576 crew and the survivors of the Bluefields finally had coordinates, a location, an answer to where their ship had gone. But questions remained about what happened in those final moments, about how the battle unfolded, about what the physical evidence could reveal that the official records couldn't. Joe Hoyt, a NOAA marine sanctuary scientist who worked on the discovery, called it an important battle site that represented a moment frozen in time, a place where researchers could study not just one loss, but an entire engagement, with both sides of the story preserved on the ocean floor. The Bluefields wasn't just a victim. It was part of a convoy that fought back. And the evidence of that fight was sitting right there, 240 yards away, in the wreckage of the submarine that attacked it. Why did this particular ship, in this particular convoy, become the center of an engagement that cost 45 lives? And what can the wreck tell us that the survivors couldn't? The Bluefields was part of convoy KS 520, moving down the east coast on the afternoon of July 15, 1942. 19 merchant vessels traveling from Norfolk, Virginia, toward Key West, Florida, under U.S. Navy and Coast Guard escort. This was standard procedure during the height of the Battle of the Atlantic. Merchant ships didn't travel alone anymore. The waters off the eastern seaboard had become a hunting ground. German U-boats operating under orders from Admiral Karl Dönitz were sinking Allied tonnage faster than it could be replaced. This was the tail end of what the Germans called the Second Happy Time, the months following Pearl Harbor, when U-boats operated with devastating success along the American coast. Between January and July 1942, over 400 Allied ships were sunk in U.S. waters. Coastal cities enforced blackouts. The U.S. Navy was scrambling to organize effective convoy systems, install sonar, and train crews in anti-submarine warfare. Convoy KS 520 had escorts. It had defensive measures. It stayed close to shore, following routes where U-boats were more vulnerable to depth charges and aerial reconnaissance. It was around 4 p.m. when U-5 commanded by Captain Lieutenant Hans-Dieter Heinecke, moved into attack position approximately 30 miles off Diamond Shoals. The submarine was submerged. Navy war logs confirm the U-boat fired 4 torpedoes at the convoy. One struck the Bluefields. Others hit or damaged additional vessels. The torpedo struck the Bluefields below the waterline. The crew abandoned ship. All hands survived. They were rescued by convoy escorts as the freighter listed and began to sink. The evacuation was organized. There was time. The ship went down stern first, settling to the bottom in minutes. What the survivors witnessed next changed the outcome of the entire engagement. The convoy's escorts counterattacked. The USS Unicoi, a Navy patrol boat, and Coast Guard aircraft located the submerged U-boat and attacked with depth charges. Heinecke tried to evade, but the damage was catastrophic. U-576 was crippled, flooding, and sinking within minutes of torpedoing the Bluefields. The submarine went down with all 45 crew members. Both vessels sank within 240 yards of each other. Both came to rest on the same battlefield. One crew survived. One didn't. The ROV survey shows the torpedo damage on the Bluefields. The impact point is visible. The way the ship settled on the bottom reflects how quickly it went down after the hit. The masts and deck structures fell as the vessel sank, creating the debris pattern still visible today. But the wreck also shows something else. The ship didn't disintegrate. It didn't scatter across the seabed. It went down as a largely intact structure, which is consistent with a torpedo strike that caused flooding, but not catastrophic structural failure. The survivors described a fast sinking but an orderly evacuation. The physical evidence supports that. The wreck shows a ship that was abandoned, not destroyed in an explosion. A vessel that sank because of flooding, not because it was blown apart. And 240 yards away, U-576 tells the other half of the story. The submarine that attacked and was destroyed in return. The wreck of a U-boat that went down so fast, its crew had no chance to escape. The Bluefields was a Nicaraguan-flagged merchant freighter. Nicaragua had declared war on the Axis powers in December 1941, making it an allied nation by the time of this attack. The ship was a legitimate military target under international law. It was part of a military convoy, supporting the Allied war effort, transporting cargo as part of the broader logistical network that kept supplies moving. What that cargo was, the records don't specify. No AA surveys haven't focused on cargo identification. The holds are present, the hatches are there, but no detailed inventory has been conducted or released. That's not unusual. Most merchant wrecks from this period don't have verified cargo records preserved at the wreck site. Manifests were kept on shore. Ships went down with their holds sealed. And after 72 years of saltwater exposure, organic materials, paperwork, and even some metals would have degraded beyond recognition. But the question remains, was there something about this ship, this convoy, or this route that made Heineke decide to attack in broad daylight, in shallow water, with escorts nearby? The attack cost him his boat and his entire crew. That was an enormous risk. U-boats didn't usually engage convoys this aggressively unless the target was worth it. So what made the Bluefields worth it? And what does the wreck reveal about that decision? The physical evidence at the wreck site shows a standard torpedo attack and a rapid sinking. ROV imaging conducted during NOAA's 2014 survey and follow-up expeditions revealed the ship's condition. The hull is intact up to the main deck. The torpedo impact caused flooding. The masts and booms collapsed as the vessel sank. Sediment covers parts of the wreck, which is typical for sites at this depth and age. There are 2 cargo hatches, one at the bow and one aft of the deckhouse. They're present and identifiable in the surveys. NOAA descriptions note them as part of the ship's standard merchant freighter design. There's no indication of unusual preservation, forced entry, or anomalies compared to other wrecks of this type. The wreck shows typical corrosion for 72 years in cold salt water. The steel has degraded, but the structure remains recognizable. Marine life has colonized the site, which is expected. Coral, sponges, and fish use the hull as habitat. The site functions as an artificial reef. NOAA has not opened the cargo holds. The site is protected as a war grave under the Monitor National Marine Sanctuary, and disturbance of the wreck is prohibited without permits. The decision not to open the holds is based on ethical considerations, legal protections, and the fact that there's no confirmed need for invasive investigation. But the holds are there, and they've been sealed since 1942. That's not unusual for a merchant wreck. Ships went down with their cargo secured. Hatches were closed as part of normal operations. In an emergency evacuation, there would be no reason to open them. The crew's priority was survival, not cargo. The question isn't whether the hatches are unusually sealed. It's what the standard condition of a 72-year-old wreck can tell us about what happened in the final moments. Naval historians have noted that convoy routes in 1942 carried a wide variety of materials: food, raw materials, manufactured goods, equipment, everything needed to support the war effort. Merchant ships were the logistics backbone of the Allied strategy. Without them, the war couldn't be sustained. The Bluefields was part of that network. It was a working freighter, moving cargo down the coast as part of a protected convoy. The specifics of what it carried aren't documented in the available records. That's common. Cargo manifests weren't always preserved, especially for ships that were sunk. What we do know is that U-576 attacked this convoy with enough aggression to risk everything. Heineke fired 4 torpedoes. That's a significant commitment of resources for a submarine operating in hostile waters. Each torpedo was valuable. Each attack exposed the U-boat to detection and counterattack. And that's exactly what happened. The convoy escorts responded immediately. They located the submarine. They attacked with depth charges. They sank it. The wreck of U-576, sitting 240 yards from the Bluefields, is the physical evidence of that response. It shows a submarine that went down hard, that didn't have time to escape, that was caught and destroyed in the same engagement where it sank a merchant ship. That's the story the dual wreck site tells. Not just an attack, but a battle. Not just a loss, but a costly exchange where both sides paid a price. The Bluefields went down, but its crew survived. U-576 went down, and no one made it out. That balance, that outcome, is what makes this site significant. It's not about what was in the holds. It's about what happened when a U-boat attacked a defended convoy and paid for it with 45 lives. The evidence is there, on the ocean floor, in 2 wrecks that have sat undisturbed for over 7 decades. And the question that remains is whether there's more to learn from them. Whether the physical condition of the ships, the layout of the site, the way they came to rest, can reveal details about the engagement that the official records don't capture, because records are written by survivors, and U-576 had none. The wreck is now protected, but the site remains a source of ongoing research. The SS Bluefields and U-576 lie within the Monitor National Marine Sanctuary, legally protected from salvage, disturbance, or commercial exploitation under the National Marine Sanctuaries Act. NOAA has conducted non-invasive ROV surveys to document the site, but no excavation or hold opening has been authorized. The 45 men who died aboard U-576 are entombed within the submarine. The site is treated as a war grave. Families of the German crew were notified when the wreck was identified in 2014. For many, it provided closure, a location, an end to decades of uncertainty about where their loved ones had gone. The survivors of the Bluefields and their families also received notification. For them, the discovery confirmed what they'd known. Their ship had gone down off Cape Hatteras in combat as part of the larger struggle of the Battle of the Atlantic. NOAA's position is clear. The site is historically significant and must be preserved. Disturbing the wrecks would require federal permits, extensive consultation, and a compelling research justification. Opening the cargo holds of the Bluefields would set a precedent for other protected sites, and there's no guarantee that the contents would be identifiable or historically revelatory after 72 years of exposure to salt water. The decision to leave the site undisturbed is based on respect for the dead, legal protections, and the principle that some wrecks are better left as memorials than as archaeological excavations. But the site continues to be studied. NOAA has conducted follow-up surveys, including live-streamed ROV dives in 2022 as part of the Valor in the Atlantic Expedition. These efforts focus on non-invasive documentation, allowing the public and researchers to see the wrecks without disturbing them. Marine biologists note the ecological value of the site. The wrecks function as artificial reefs, providing habitat for Atlantic marine life. Coral, sponges, and fish have colonized the structures over decades. The site is ecologically active, which adds another layer of complexity to any consideration of disturbance. The Bluefields matters because it represents a chapter of history that's often overlooked. The Battle of the Atlantic wasn't fought in famous naval engagements. It was fought in convoys, in merchant ships, in the daily struggle to move supplies across an ocean patrolled by submarines. The wreck is a physical record of that struggle. It's a reminder that the war wasn't just about military vessels. It was about the men who crewed civilian freighters, who sailed into danger as part of the larger effort, and who sometimes didn't make it home. And it's a reminder that the U-boats that hunted them paid a price too. U-576 sank the Bluefields, but it didn't survive the battle. The convoy fought back. The escorts did their job. And 45 German sailors went down with their submarine just minutes after their attack. The proximity of the two wrecks tells that story more powerfully than any document. They're frozen in the moment of their final engagement. One crew survived, one didn't. Both ships stayed where they fell. U-576's war logs were lost with the submarine. Heineke's reports never made it back to Germany. The only detailed record of the attack comes from the convoy escorts and the survivors of the Bluefields, people who saw the battle from one side, who couldn't know what was happening inside the U-boat as it went down. The wreck itself is the only testimony from the other side, and it tells a story of a decision that cost everything. The truth is there, on the ocean floor, in two ships that have rested side by side for over 72 years. A battlefield preserved in steel and sediment, waiting for the next generation of researchers to study it, document it, and ensure that the story it tells isn't forgotten. So the Bluefield sits, protected, while technology advances and new survey methods become available. The steel continues to corrode, slowly in the cold water. The site continues to change, as all underwater sites do, shaped by currents, marine life, and time. But the story remains, the evidence remains, and as long as the wrecks are there, the questions they raise will continue to draw researchers, historians, and families who want to understand what happened on that July afternoon in 1942, when a merchant ship went down, when a U-boat followed it to the bottom, and when 45 men were lost in a battle that lasted minutes, but left a mark that's lasted decades. The SS Bluefields and U-576 are more than wrecks. They're a reminder of the cost of war, the courage of those who fought it, and the stories that remain even when the voices are gone. And they're still there, 690 feet down, waiting to be remembered.